Almost 10 years ago, we witnessed an incredible phenomenon that promised to change football history forever. Seemingly out of nowhere, the Chinese Super League began making multiple millionaire signings like you had never seen before. They brought in veterans like Drogba and Tevez, but the thing that really made everyone pay attention was how easily they attracted some of the most sought-after players from the 2010s. Oscar, Hulk, Witzel and many others joined in exchange for unlimited wealth. Whether this was all just an attempt to launder ill-gotten gains or a grandmaster plan to turn China into a football powerhouse and a World Cup host in the near future is uncertain. However, today the dream seems far more distant than it did back then. The league's momentum, once unstoppable, has since faded dramatically. Clubs that were once awash with money are now struggling or extinct, and almost every foreign star that flooded the league has since moved on. So, what exactly went wrong? Was it a matter of overspending without long-term planning, or was there a deeper structural issue that doomed the league's ambitions from the start? In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the rise and fall of the Chinese Super League, analyzing the key factors that led to its spectacular collapse, and what lessons the global football community can take from this once promising football experiment. So first, as usual, let me give you some context. The Chinese Super League was formed in 2004 in response to the bad reputation its predecessor, the GIA League, used to have. From 1994 until 2003, the GIA League was China's premier football competition. However, due to a lack of regulations, this league was notorious for widespread corruption, match fixing and bribery scandals. These issues severely damaged the league's credibility and caused the loss of public trust, which led to a sharp decline in attendance and interest. The CSL's inception was intended to bring about a fresh start, with stricter governance and higher professional standards, while also promoting commercialization and foreign investments to elevate Chinese football status on the world stage. Yeah, that was all for nothing. Just a few years later, the new CSL was already involved with the same corruption problems that caused the downfall of its predecessor, but this time, thanks to an established anti-corruption plan, the CSL apparently fixed those issues permanently. Of course, after so many repeated cases, a simple promise that it wasn't going to happen again wasn't going to cut it. Not for the Chinese fans, much less for the international audience. China needed credibility. I mean, can you really sit or lie there with a stone face and tell me you've watched their league during the 2000s or currently? Of course not, and I don't blame you. The reason why we watch the leagues we do isn't because we're so deeply in love with the sport, but instead, we're invested. Whether it's because we support a specific team, player, or merely want to know why a buzz is being generated, we watch them because we're given no reason to care. And let's be real, unless you're Chinese or a hardcore fan, you simply won't be bothered to follow the Chinese league. Now, if they brought in some football legends to the mix, that would keep people talking. In this specific case, it was an even greater shock since they brought in several rising stars to the league, which was completely unfathomable. Several Middle Eastern leagues and the MLS had managed to attract superstars in the past, but they were all past their primes. In this case, you had world-class players competing day in and day out and some pretty decent squads. The tendency was that the league would only grow stronger in the future, even though it would be mostly thanks to foreign players. That wouldn't necessarily grow the national team by itself, but the logic behind it was that having superstars in their own league, coupled with making football part of the school curriculum, would inspire Chinese kids to follow football seriously and, as a consequence, grow the talent pool in the country. You see, China might have one of the biggest populations worldwide, but that doesn't mean it will translate into a larger talent pool than a smaller country with a bigger football tradition like Portugal or Croatia. Following a football career is very frowned upon in China. Footballers don't have the same status they have in other countries, so the government had to get hands-on if they wanted to produce any significant changes. The real estate market boom was the perfect opportunity to turn that dream into reality, as many investors wanted to diversify their sources of income and, most importantly, fall into the good graces of Xi Jinping. You see, unlike Saudi Arabia, the money being invested in their league didn't come directly from the state. However, the CCP had as much influence on the league's regulations as the Saudi kingdom. On paper, this plan had everything to succeed. Maybe it wouldn't translate into a maiden World Cup win for China in just 15 years, but it would surely catapult the league to another level. Except, all the signings sucked ass. Their stars might have been among the very best in Europe, but the vast majority didn't give a flying f about their new clubs in China. Tevez, who became the most well-paid player in the world after his move to Shanghai Shenhua, stated that he saw his tenure in China as merely a paid vacation and that he never intended to stay there in the long run. Marko Arnautovic also admitted to not caring about his diet, eating at the wrong hours and staying up all night. Honestly, they didn't have to admit it, as they both significantly dropped their numbers even though they were playing at a considerably lower level. Unfortunately, this was the norm, not an exception, and we knew fuck's sake. Xi Jinping did not like this one bit. In his eyes, these footballers were foreign gold diggers getting rich at the expense of China. They weren't dignifying the sport, nor were they helping to change the course of their football history. Something had to be done. Perhaps the CCL needed to adapt the players' contracts or simply scout their targets more efficiently to guarantee that they were signing stars that actually took the league seriously, like it's happening for the most part in Saudi Arabia. Xi Jinping wanted none of that though. Just as quickly as he approved and encouraged crazy investment, he decided to pull the plug on his project. From 2018 onwards, any club that wished to spend over 6 million euros on a player would have to make a payment equal to the size of the transfer fee to the Chinese FA. That meant a player would cost double the price their club asked for them, which was simply unsustainable in the long run. Fast forward 2 years and COVID-19 came knocking on the league's door, ready to dish out the final blow. As I've already mentioned, the majority of the money being thrown around came from real estate bootlickers. With all the lockdowns, border control, and the subsequent economic crisis, their spending power became a bit more limited. Couple that with a new law banning naming clubs after businesses, and their willingness to keep their investments in football greatly diminished. If that wasn't enough, the league also introduced a salary cap, meaning that foreign players cannot earn more than 3 million euros a season, which is well below what any decent player would earn, let alone a renowned star. At this point, out of every big money signing, only Oscar remains, but is already set to leave when the 2024 season comes to an end. Just a few years ago, he was one of the most exciting talents in the world. I mean, I didn't forget the Under-20 World Cup in 2011 when he showed the skill and calmness of a veteran. But nowadays, he's a 33-year-old who hasn't played a match at the highest level for almost 8 years. His destiny will most likely be another adventure in the Millionaire League or a return to his home country. But I don't think he's too bothered by that fact. I actually appreciate his honesty. In a world full of politically correct bullshit, Oscar has publicly admitted from the very beginning that he made this decision to guarantee generational wealth for his family and that he does not regret it one bit. So, who are you football purists to blame him? I'm sure 90% of the people watching would do or have done similar things for way less money. And at least, Oscar isn't trying to make us believe the CSL is anything more than what it is, or what it was during its prime. A developing league, miles and miles away from the top 5 level. To be fair, the plan to turn China into a superpower in football isn't necessarily over. China is still investing money in the league. I mean, foreign players continue to be the most competent, which tells you a lot about their current level, considering that their imports are merely average players from all around the world. The worst part about it, which makes me feel like they're not going to develop in the short term, is that no one knows how to run a f***ing club in China. There's no business plan to guarantee adequate cash flow, and the teams ultimately have no heritage or significance. So much so that 6 clubs that took part in the league's first superstar season have gone extinct in the past 8 years, and no one made a huge deal about it. People just moved on with their lives as if it was simply the end of a local thrift shop down the street. If they act so indifferently to the demise of their best teams, how can I expect them to do well in the future? If Asia ever possesses a league capable of somewhat matching the top 5 level, I think Japan or even Saudi Arabia probably hold the best chance of development compared to a close-minded country like China. What do you think? Will China ever become a football powerhouse? Feel free to tell me your opinion in the comments, as I always go through every single one of them. If you like this video, show your support by hitting that thumbs up. It's so hard to get these videos on random and unsearched topics off the ground that you have no idea how much impact do you have by just clicking a small little button. I want to continue making content I'm passionate about, not just random top 5 videos about the trendiest of players just to get views. I want to build my own space where we can freely discuss interesting topics from our favorite sports history. But in order to achieve it, I need your help. Thanks for watching this video until the end. If you want to continue binging more videos just like this one, click the playlist on the screen. I'll see you there.